dear listeners, we have good news. In the description under this video, you can find our new channel. Please support our channel with your subscription, so you won't miss new fascinating stories. Enjoy listening to it. Vindication E8. The end of summer finally arrived, and with it came the long-awaited opportunity to spend a vacation together with my wife Margaret. We spent a long time together choosing where to go this time. Our choice was to go to Australia, especially since she had an uncle who lived there on her father's side. She called him, and he kindly offered to let us stay with him. I had booked the plane tickets in advance, and now we only had to pack our bags and get ready for the long flight between the continents. We left the children in the care of my parents, who lived in our town and who were always happy to host their grandchildren. This way we were able to concentrate on packing. Margaret bought herself a pair of new swimsuits, thinking that the ones she had no longer looked as good. She liked to look always nice and flawless. She also set herself up to buy some dresses. "Honey, but we can go shopping there too. We'll have to carry less with us," I discouraged her, knowing that I would have to carry her suitcases. I didn't have much with me, so I packed only the essentials: a razor, a few clean shirts, and a suit, plus a few other small items, and it all fit in a small suitcase. "Oh, Justin, you're right, of course, but I'll still take a few outfits with me." Or couldn't go without anything. I couldn't argue with her. She'd get her way anyway. I just watched as she shoved in a suitcase, in addition to clothes, a bunch of cosmetics, and various fancy tubes of creams. "What do you need this for?" I asked, looking at the hairdryer and curling iron. "Yes, you're right." She took the hairdryer in her hands. And 'twas to do here. I forgot the hairdryer. She threw the hairdryer into the suitcase and went rummaging through the drawer of the dresser, looking for the necessary thing. Soon I got tired of watching this spectacle, and I went into the kitchen, got the crossword puzzles, and sat down to solve them, to kill some time. While my wife was rustling around in the room. "What did you put in there?" I wondered when she was closing the lid and zipping the suitcase. "Not much at all. Just the essentials." "Yeah, you need a separate plane for your stuff." "Oh, please. Don't do that." She didn't like my sarcasm, but I tried not to hurt her too much. Sometimes I just like to make jokes. The day of the flight arrived. We took a cab to the airport, where fortunately we could put our suitcases on a cart whose driver kindly drove us to the waiting room. It's leaving Margaret in the seats. I went to check out the tickets. There wasn't much of a line since we arrived a little early. When I returned, Margaret had already made a new acquaintance. I made a new acquaintance with some Arab. "I'd like you to meet him. This is Sayed. He's flying to Sydney too, and he has a seat next to ours." Certainly wasn't a racist, but it was his ethnicity that made me distrustful, knowing that they were the ones who were mostly terrorists. I didn't want to show my displeasure, so I politely greeted him. Sitting closer to my wife, I started talking to her about the children, hoping that her interlocutor would understand and decide to leave us. But he was in no hurry and tried to carry on a conversation with us. Listen, Sayad, I would like to talk to my wife alone. I couldn't stand it, and I said it outright. Actions? Well, then I'll leave you. It was nice meeting you. Margaret? My. What was he just talking to us? My wife rebuked me as he left. I discreetly checked our seats to see if he'd left anything behind. Oh, you're so paranoid. Margaret did notice me ogling our space. I'm just worried, I replied and hugged her. After some time of waiting, they announced our flight was boarding. I took our suitcases. Margaret got the smaller one, and we went to get in line, having our tickets and passports ready. I was not surprised when I saw the very same Arab behind us. I even thought for a moment that he was following us. That verbally he had not yet disturbed us, and seemed calm and composed. That made me feel a little better. I'm on the plane. I put my wife by the window so I could sit between her and the Arab. Margaret kept me busy with her chatter about her upcoming trip, the places she wanted to visit, and the kinds of activities she wanted to try. Next was Karen's, I would encourage you to go to a nature reserve. It really is very fascinating and beautiful there. You will definitely like it. The Arab leaned over my shoulder and spoke to my wife. Thank you for the idea. It was very kind of you. I took out the magazine and unfolded it completely, thus blocking them from each other and hinting that their conversation should be interrupted. Honey, we have such a long flight. Election, maybe you should get some rest. Get some sleep. It's going to be a long flight. Are you jealous or something? She took offense, or just talking. I got it. I won't bother you. The Arab snuggled up in his chair and closed his eyes, pretending he was going to sleep. But the first hours of the flight passed quietly. Margaret would occasionally tell me about her plans and ask for advice, and I kept the conversation going as best I could. But at the same time, I also began to feel a kind of fatigue, and I soon felt like taking a nap. But remembering our neighbor, I tried to keep myself awake, but nevertheless, after a while, I too fell asleep. I woke up from a jolt that seemed very strong to me. It looked like we had fallen into an inner pocket. That's when I opened my eyes. I noticed that the Arab was not there, and a terrible thought crept into my head. The pilot announced that we were in turbulence and asked us to fasten our seatbelts. The passengers obeyed his request. I kept looking around for our neighbor, who was nowhere to be seen. Excuse me. There was an Arab sitting here with us, but he is nowhere to be seen. I turned to a passing stewardess. All right, sir. I'll see where he may be. She answered, smiling. Oh, Justin, do you remember when I dreamed of being a flight attendant? All the work of flying. So romantic? Margaret was remembering. What's so romantic about it? Not all people are polite. You go around smiling at everybody. I know you wouldn't last a day. That's true. I hate being insulted. That's why it remains a dream. Soon, I saw an Arab come out of the bathroom, and the stewardess started telling him to go back to his seat. He took his time, but soon returned to us. The rest of the flight was relatively quiet. We salted off the gangway, and Margaret took her time looking around, expressing her admiration. Her uncle Leon was already meeting us at the airport. He walked us to his car and we drove off. On the way, Margaret demanded a few stops at beautiful buildings, made me her photographer for the time, and also asked my uncle to take pictures of us together. She was already quite a grown woman, but she acted like a teenager in a magical land. "Margaret, let's go already," I asked her. "Aren't you tired at all? But it's so nice here. We still have 3 weeks to go. Let's go." I was a little tired from the flight. I really felt tired and I wanted to lie down on a normal bed. When we finally arrived at her uncle's house, I marveled. His house was enormous, with a lush garden and a small fountain. First, Leon put us in a spacious room, and I dropped my shoes and fell onto the bed at speed. "Hey, what's up? I thought we were going for a walk around town. Let's do it a little later." "Achie, you're trying to wear me out," I muttered and closed my eyes. I heard Margaret unpacking her suitcases, talking to someone on the phone, and then I heard the door close in my sleep. I was alone in peace and quiet. Sleep dried me off and I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes, it was already dusk. Outside the door, somewhere below, I could hear my wife's ringing voice and that of her uncle. She was telling him something full of emotion. I got up and went to the bathroom to wash my face. Perhaps the time difference had had such an effect on me that I was drowsy. But I soon got myself cleaned up and went down to them. "Oh, there's our sleeping beauty. How are you, honey? Did you get some rest?" Trent had already bought all sorts of trinkets and was showing them off to her relative. "Yes, I'm fine now. Where have you been?" "Where? Oh, I've been out and about, and I've been shopping. By the way, at Said, and he kept me company." This phrase made me feel that it was beginning to fill me with rage. Though I wasn't the jealous type, Margaret and I had always trusted each other. The reaction, I sensed now that his intrusiveness wasn't a harmless, friendly suggestion. Considering the way Margaret talked about him, "I don't want you associating with him," I demanded, not embarrassed by her uncle. "He seems suspicious. You are too trusting." Margaret was embarrassed. She gathered up her trinkets, called me a jealous chump, and went to her room. I felt no remorse for what I had said. On the contrary, I felt like I was protecting her from bad company. Leon looked at me approvingly, grinning. He said that Margaret was just enjoying her vacation and liked to socialize. Yes, she was quite sociable, and I never forbade her to have many friends. I wasn't much of a talker myself and was always more of a listener. The next few days Margaret and I visited many sites, and she also commanded us to go to a nature reserve. It's in many ways, of course, it was a lot of her whims, but I had a good enough rest and entertainment myself. In the evenings, we would occasionally video call the kids, telling them how we were spending our time. They, in turn, demanded that we bring them a few things they had ordered. I also found common ground with Leon. Sometimes Margaret would go shopping by herself, since I wasn't a fan of shopping. I would stay with Leon, and he would show me his collections and tell me about his hobbies. But as time went on, I began to notice that on some phone calls, Margaret went to another room to answer, or said she would call back later. This mystery of hers interested me because she couldn't have any work calls now, and she'd never hidden her conversations from me on the phone before. "Who are you cooing with?" I decided to spur her on. "Nothing. Just a friend calling." Turning to me, "I don't want to bore you with her sorrows." She explained it to me, but I still couldn't get it out of my head. One day, taking advantage of the situation, when she was in the shower and her phone was on the nightstand, I decided to sneak a look at her call list. But to my surprise, the same number, signed Hornet, was often repeated in the call log. A strange name, I thought. Who could have signed it that way? I quickly copied the number into my phone and pressed the call button. A familiar voice answered me, with an Arabic accent. I recognized the voice. It was Said, who was flying with us. But why was she hiding it from me and signing it so strangely? I put her phone down and sat on the bed waiting for her to finish. Her bathroom routine. "Oh, why aren't you lying down?" Margaret asked, coming out of the bathroom in just a towel. "I thought you were warming my bed." "I don't feel like it yet. I'm going downstairs for a drink. You go to bed. Must have been a long day, huh? Did you do a lot of shopping today?" "Oh yeah. Too much running and tired. Come back soon." I left the room and closed the door. As I walked a few steps, I stopped and quietly walked back to the door, leaning my ear against it. Margaret was already dialing someone's number, and I heard her chirping cheerfully. "Yeah, we'd have a lot of fun tonight." "What? No. He doesn't suspect. Don't worry about it." "Oh, you what? How could you?" "Yes, sweetie. I can't wait either." "Sweet, huh?" I thought. "What are you doing behind my back, bitch?" I didn't burst into the room with a scandal, realizing I was being cruelly deceived by my wife. "What are you doing sitting alone in the dark?" "Oh, reason. Just thinking." "Did Margaret tell you where she went today?" She was so frank with, "Yeah, oh, is she hiding something from you?" He grinned and poured himself a drink, too. "No, she said nothing out of the ordinary. All the fluttering about the beautiful clothes in the boutiques. I didn't involve him in my suspicions, and he continued talking about other little things in life. I slept poorly during the night, unable to get Margaret's phone conversation out of my head. The next day, when she invited me to go for a walk with her, I declined on the pretext that I wasn't feeling well. "Oh, you're not sick?" "No. I'll just lie down for a while. I've got a bit of a headache." Actress Margaret left, and after a little while I gathered myself together and followed her, turning on the phone tracking app on my phone so I could see where she was going. I followed, hoping to find out what she was really up to with this Sayed. Margaret took a walk first, as usual, then I saw her head for the park. I was not far away so as not to lose sight of her. I did not have to wait long. Soon Said came up to her, and I saw them having a nice conversation, And it didn't feel like a friendship at all while I was watching all this anger and rage were spreading through me, but when he went to kiss her, and Margaret was clearly not resisting it. I couldn't stand it and ran out of my hiding place. Alapractions, I jumped and knocked him to the ground. How dare you come near my wife? I started to beat him with my fists. The Arab was not bad either, and he fought back very skillfully. We fought for some time, kicking the grass beneath us. Margaret jumped up at the sight of me and ran away. I didn't even try to finish the fight. I wanted to beat out all the lustful desires he had for my wife. But when I heard the siren of a police car in the distance, I stopped. I don't want to see you anywhere near her. Ever. I turned and walked away, and he kept looking after me, wiping blood from his chin with his sleeve. I also found out on the phone where Margaret was going. I caught up with her at her uncle's house. What was that all about? How could you do that? And with some smelly Arab. How dare you? We didn't do anything like that. You're imagining things. You think it's nothing. He almost swallowed you with his drooling mouth. Leon came running in to see us arguing. She started complaining about me and crying. Leon didn't want to get involved. He sent her back to his place, and he told me to have a talk and tell it like it was. Well, I can't advise you anything about Margaret. She is, after all, my niece. You know what I mean. But I can help you get even with your annoying boyfriend. Leon gave me a very interesting idea. He contacted some acquaintances of his and bought some explosives. After finding out where Seed was living, these same acquaintances secretly planted this explosive mixture and some equipment on him. Then the police station received an anonymous call that a terrorist attack was being prepared, and that the alleged bomber was at a particular address. Being not far from Sed's house, I was able to watch as many police officers wrestled through his house, and he himself was arrested. To me, such a spectacle brought a sense of satisfaction. We had little contact with Margaret for the rest of the vacation, but she never went out alone. And when we returned home, I gave her a real interrogation, in which she confessed that she had an affair with Zaid because she had been seduced by him. I stayed with her under the same roof just for the sake of the children. But I no longer had any confidence in her, and we were no longer sleeping together. So I threatened her that if she thought about dating someone else, her life would become a nightmare. At the same time, I got myself a mistress and even introduced her to my wife. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.